911 operators of Reddit, what call will you simply never forget? During a power outage, I got screamed at by a man who demanded to know why he didn't have power when a car just drove by with its lights on. Do people ever get stupid about power outages? People will call us on 911 just to tell us about it and then get mad when we tell them there's nothing we can do about an outage. Like, what do you want the police to do here? You want us to come arrest the darkness? We have guns, not magic missile. I'm a generator technician. I get called out to places when their generator fails to work during a power outage, and I swear they think I poop out magic missiles. The pose isn't working. What's wrong with it? Me, well I just got here and can tell it was hit by lightning. Well you can fix it right. Me, we would need to replace half the unit. Do you carry the parts on your truck? Me, yeah dude I totally carry half of your big ass generator on my truck every day just in case this happens. Don't mind the fact that it's 10,000 in parts, that's super cheap for stock parts. Hey, it's downpouring and I'm going back home so I can go back to sleep, so yeah. I'm sure plenty of other people will have crazier ones. But the first time I took an overdose call, it's a crazy experience literally hearing someone dying on the other side of the phone. It was sort of a mix of gurgling, screaming, and gasping for air. Fortunately the friend of the person that was odding was the one who called, so I could actually get some information to pass along to my officers/firefighters. Unfortunately the caller was also super high and freaking out, understandably, and decided to lie about what drugs his friend was on, which slightly delayed Narcan being administered. Not to the point that it mattered, but it did delay it. The person that odd-lived. That's actually a lesson my father taught me when I was young. No matter what happens, never lie to doctors about anything, no matter what it is. Doctors don't care about you breaking the law, they care about you not dying. Stories like this remind me why I stick to that life lesson. It's a good lesson. And actually, in the UK at least, it isn't illegal to have drugs in your system. In fact, I don't think it is even illegal to take them. The reason being, if you do take something and do get in trouble, you should be free to seek medical assistance without fear or repercussions. Used to take ambulance calls for 999 over here in the UK and thought I'd add a more happier call here to buck the trend. I managed to deliver 5 babies while doing that job. The first one the dad was on. First thing he screams is the head's coming out, the head's coming out. Another one they were on their way to hospital when the baby just started arriving. So I delivered a baby over the phone on the side of a motorway. The sound of a baby crying during childbirth is the most stress relieving sound of all. One of the families wrote in to say thank you, and I got to meet them and the baby. On the flip side, hangings were never fun. Thankfully I only ever had 2. The first was a Tuesday morning. Just started my shift at 7 AM. First call. Woman comes on screaming this blood-curdling noise. Just pure emotion. Nothing like in the films. Turns out her husband had hung himself in their bedroom with the kids still in the house. So she was trying to keep the kids out while get an ambulance. The other was a man who called ever so calmly to say his daughter had hung herself. I didn't understand why he was so calm and measured. Then he said at the end he was a police officer, so had seen this before. Poor guy. I still think about those 2 callers. Dude, what happened to bucking the trend? That was a roller coaster of happy that drooped me of it sad. My brother-in-law is a 999 operator in the UK, and they also take calls on the non-emergency number which is 101. He tells me about the more light-hearted calls, and one of them always makes me smile when I remember it. Call comes through on 101 and all he can hear is some faint muttering and a TV in the background. He's a bit worried, cause it's potentially someone who has collapsed, managed to dial a number, but isn't able to talk. He's trying to get a response when suddenly an old guy starts talking to him, obviously very confused as to why there's someone on the end of the phone. Turns out the old guy had thought his phone was his TV remote, and he was just trying to watch the golf on BBC, which just so happens to be channel 101. He was very apologetic when my brother-in-law explained what he'd done. When I was a kid, I had mice. Once, I was about 11, I called the 112 because one of them escaped and I was scared that it would chew on cords and cause fire. The dispatcher was very angry that I called. You should try a wireless mouse. Not 911, but telenursing. People called me plenty when it should have been 911. Grandma calls me about her 16-year-old, 40-week pregnant granddaughter. GM, hey, my grandbaby is pregnant and she just went to pee and said the cord is hanging out. Is that normal? Me, no, not even a little bit. GM, okay, so what should I do now? Me, try unplugging the cord and then plugging it in again and see if that works. A woman masturbating on the phone. The first time she called she sounded normal at first. Asked for an officer. That never worked here. General conversation about this officer while she progressively got more extreme with her moaning. I eventually and gracefully ended the conversation. It was a wild time. I still remember her name and voice. The second and third time she called I asked if it was her and she hung up right away. Why are you like this, Ms. Roberts? What is your end game? Edit. For clarification, we trace the number down to a woman in Florida. We are located in Missouri and our agency is tiny. Part of why I like this job. Hunting her down and bringing her to justice probably would have gotten her off, wouldn't have been worth the hassle. I've been a 911 operator for 10 years. I'll never forget the time I took a noise complaint. The caller was complaining that the children in the street were being too loud. Happens all the time. Annoying but no big deal. The odd thing was she was calling me through a relay service for the deaf. Another one, we were working a barricaded subject call with SWAT. Called out the helicopter and had them circling the area for what seemed like hours. This usually leads to calls of citizens concerned that we are looking for someone and want to know if it's safe. So, after constantly answer the phones and telling people it's fine, I get a phone call from a girl. She asked about the helicopter. I gave her the basic rundown. She then goes, oh okay, so the helicopter isn't in danger? She thought it was crashing and had been for hours. Of course we get bad calls. I try not to focus on those. I'm seeing a lot of serious stories on here. The job isn't always like that. I'm a police call handler in the UK. Someone once called 999 because a pigeon was standing in the road and she was worried it would be run over. Could not understand why that didn't merit an emergency response. I'll go with the lighter one. I once had an elderly woman complain that gang members tagged her shed. She also said she didn't want a black deputy. This is the South. The black deputy arrived and found that it wasn't spray paint, but that her shed was so dirty that slugs had eaten paths in the filth that created patterns. The McSlug gang strike again. My aunt is a dispatcher for a small county in Arkansas. She got a call one night from a woman who was hiding in the bedroom closet. Apparently these two men broke into her house and were rummaging through her belongings. She told my aunt said that she had a gun and if they made it up the stairs she was going to go out and shoot them. My aunt tried to calm down, telling her police were only about a minute away. No faster did she say that the lady said oh my god her. That come the phone dropped and then 6 gunshots followed afterwards. The lady picked up the phone now in a panic, screaming and yelling. Thankfully police got there not long after. Lady never got charged with anything. One of the suspects died. The other one survived. Not an operator, but an ambulance officer. We got called at 11 at night to an assault. Minimal details. Just informed that there was a woman screaming for help. We arrive. About 5 police cars are driving away. In the middle of the road is a sergeant with an eerily large grin on his face. He says turns out it wasn't an assault, but have you ever been to an exorcism before? And that's how I attended my first and last exorcism. There's more to it. I'll add more if this gets attention. Edit. As requested. I didn't add this before as it's become slightly unbelievable, but approaching the house, we open the front door and are confronted with none other than a one-eyed 3-legged chihuahua. I kid you not. To the right is a family playing Scrabble with an armed officer standing behind them. Already on edge, I approached the youth who had called for help. She was shaken but otherwise okay. Apparently she had been pinned down by the family and had water flucked upon her in attempt to remove her demon. On further investigation, she had been crying due to a breakup. TLDR, lady breaks up with BF, gets exorcised, police and ambulance join in. Well, my buddy is a fireman and dispatch had just alerted them of man having chest pains. They get to the guy's house and as soon as they open the door, the dude's dog runs outside. The dude shouts, "You let my dog out, go get my dog, please." So my buddy immediately starts chasing the dog. He catches the dog, comes back to the house, and when he walks in the door he sees that the man having chest pains had actually shot a hole in his chest while cleaning his gun. Old dude shoots himself in the chest, tells 911 it's chest pains, and when help arrives, he makes them go chase his dog down before tending to his own life-threatening wound. Biggest WTF of my buddy's career. I had 3. 2 horrifying, but 1 kinda funny. I think I'll just share the funniest one. I took a call for a heroin O/D. Before I finish, positive outcome, no one dies in this story. Cardiac arrest, just happened. Male, in his 20s. His girlfriend and his mate call. They are very compliant. After a little distress, the GF is actually fairly awesome, even though she's stoned. She gets right into CPR, listening to my instructions. I see on my screen the ambulance has arrived, and I'm calmly starting to prepare her for them coming in. Minutes pass, and no one has entered the house. I'm used to a little delay, but this is unusual. I'm about to flag my supervisor, but she's on her way over from dispatch. "Hey, Flippy Frog, can you ask the caller to tell her friends to stop throwing deck chairs? Our guys can't get in until they do." Apparently, this was a druggy house, and there were a couple of others standing up on the first floor balcony, throwing deck chairs. I told the GF, "Hey, can you ask your friends to stop throwing deck chairs? We can't get our officers in while they're doing that, and we might have to call the police in." What the fuck? The phone drops, and I can hear her yelling in the background, stuff being thrown, and I'm trying to get some attention back, because I think CPR has stopped. Finally, there's quiet, and I can hear the ambulance enter the house and take control, so I end the call. I checked in with the crew later, and they told me the guys were off their face and thought the ambus were there to steal their things, and they needed to defend their territory, or something, with deck chairs. It's always left me wondering how many damn deck chairs did they have? Not a 911 operator, but the one who called on emergency button on our radio. I'm a paramedic, and one day we were called on scene for an overdose. Not overly different or anything, but hey, everything seemed normal for an overdose. We got on scene with one officer, and after finding the patient we tried to wake him up. Dude didn't respond at first, but after a minute he awoke with the fury of 100 bulls. In what seemed to be less than 3 seconds the patient sprung up, punched the officer, Sparta kicked my partner out the door, and cornered me in the room with a big ass knife. I have never hit the panic button on our radios faster in my life. Best part? Dispatch came on the radio. "Medic X, are you in need of assistance?" Fucking yes dispatch, we are. In the end no one got hurt, but man I couldn't sleep for a few days. Breach birth via interpreter. The caller was alone and didn't know her address. 2 men in full pirate costumes eating burritos from the trash, climbing rooftops, and throwing baby powder. Raccoon breaking into an elderly woman's house and barricading her in the closet. Officer involved shooting. The officer lived after being shot 7 times. Hostage standoff. I was online with the suspect for 2 hours after a 14-hour shift as he repeatedly stabbed himself with a kitchen knife. My favorite. 2 guys think they are witnessing a murder and body disposal. They describe a naked body covered in blood being thrown into the dumpster. It was pizza dough and sauce. The workers were just having a grand old time throwing away extras. I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting about. I was a dispatcher for a residential alarm company similar to ADT. I would call people when their alarm was tripped and ask them if they were okay. One day I received a signal from a resident from a glass break sensor on a window in the bathroom. When I called, the lady was laughing so hard she could barely give me her safety password. Turns out she was cleaning her bathroom, and when she bent over she farted so hard and loud it set off the sensor on the bathroom window. Been a dispatcher slash operator for a year and a half now. I've had basically everything from parents finding dead kids, to an 11-year-old at home who was stabbed in a home invasion, to people reporting barking dogs, and parking in front of a fire hydrant. I haven't had to deliver a baby on the phone yet though. Worst call, as the dispatcher hearing one of my officers call out he's been shot on the radio. He ended up being okay, and was back on duty 4 months later, but that was a whirlwind of emotions for a few days. Funniest call, child caller, probably 7 to 10-year-old male, called 911, didn't respond for a few seconds, then very quietly says you're a bitch and hangs up. But it was so funny the way he said it, like he had just learned the word, and was testing it out, to see how it sounded. The call was over in 5 seconds, we didn't get a GPS ping, and he didn't really sound like he was in distress, so we didn't send out any response. Most common 911 call, traffic complaints. In my area they probably catch 1/100th of the traffic complaints called in. The geographic area is just so big, and unless you have someone following specifically to get them in trouble, which we discourage, even a 1-minute head start can result in them not being found. Still call that shit in. Who knows if there's an officer right around the corner. Other pro tips when calling 911. We are trained to take control of the call. In my area from the moment you call in I'm asking you questions. What's the address? What's your phone number? What's your name? What's the problem? You don't need to say anything unless prompted. Saying get here fast doesn't help. It only slows down response while I try to figure out what's going on. Of course in the moment, when there's a lot of emotion, a child who's unresponsive, or a bad car accident or whatever, it's entirely known you'll be freaking out. So just try your best to answer our questions. Fun edit. I took a 911 call that went something like this after the call entry. Address/phone number/name. Well, I'm the manager here at this Goodwill, and last night 2 of my employees, well, they didn't really get into a fight, but they were really aggressive with each other, and I think they would have started fighting if we didn't get them separated. Anyway, they were both scheduled this afternoon and only one of them showed up on time. He was here about 2 hours ago, and the other guy never showed up. Then he came in a few minutes ago and stabbed that guy in the neck 3 times with a box cutter. Lady, maybe lead with that next time. Also, guy was transported non-emergent to the hospital and released the same day. I guess the first guy really sucks at stabbing people. He got arrested and is still in jail. This thread is actually really depressing. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that bell to turn on notifications, so you'll be sure to know when the next video comes out. Want to watch some more? Check out my other videos. I really do appreciate everyone who helps make these videos possible. And as always, thanks for watching.